Lena stood nervously at the edge of the massive hall, her heart pounding in her chest. The mating ceremony was about to begin, and she hated every moment of it. The ceremony was a tradition that had been passed down for generations, a custom shared by many species in the galaxy, including her own. Every few years, young men and women were required to participate. It was a chance to form powerful alliances, strengthen families, and, for some, to ensure their future security. For others, like Lena, it was simply a way to survive. She could hear the low murmur of the crowd filling the grand hall as the alien lords and ladies took their places, all eyes eventually turning to the human candidates like her. Lena was from a prestigious family, one that had been part of this tradition for centuries. Yet the thought of being paired with one of the alien princes, who were all around her now, made her stomach churn. There were so many of them, tall, regal beings of all shapes and sizes. Some were covered in shimmering armor that glistened in the dim light of the hall. Others had strange, almost ethereal features, their skin glowing faintly with an otherworldly energy. They were powerful, each one vying for a partnership with her, for the political advantage her family represented. Some came from planets filled with millions of years of history. Others ruled vast empires, their names known across the galaxy. Lena, however, wanted none of it. Her family had tried to prepare her for this moment, teaching her the art of diplomacy, encouraging her to use the ceremony as a chance to form valuable alliances. But Lena was different. She didn't want to be part of this. She didn't want to be another pawn in some political game. All she longed for was freedom. To choose her own path, to make her own decisions. "Come on, Lena," her cousin whispered in her ear, pulling her attention back to the front of the room. "It's your turn. Don't be foolish." Lena took a deep breath and stepped forward. She felt every eye on her as she moved to the center of the hall, where a large, glowing pedestal stood, a platform where each participant was expected to choose their future partner. All around her, whispers of excitement filled the air. Lena, though, felt nothing but dread. She had to make a choice. But she couldn't stand the thought of being claimed by any of these men, even though some were powerful, rich, and important. She glanced nervously across the room. Her heart raced as her gaze passed over the various faces, alien and human alike. Some of them were looking at her with interest, some with hunger in their eyes, as if she were just another prize to be won. Her eyes darted around in search of any possible escape. It was then that she saw him. A figure at the far side of the hall caught her attention. At first glance, he seemed out of place among the nobility. His clothes were ragged, as if he didn't belong to the extravagance of the ceremony. He stood apart from the other men, unnoticed by most, his eyes downcast as though he didn't care about the attention around him. But there was something about him that caught her attention. The beggar. Lena's gaze locked onto him for a moment. He looked unkempt, dirty even, his hair matted and his clothes torn. But there was a certain stillness about him, a quiet confidence that intrigued her. It was as if he knew something that no one else did. She needed to do something, anything, and this beggar, standing alone in the crowd, seemed like the perfect person to distract everyone. In a moment of impulsive decision, Lena walked towards him, her feet moving before her mind could catch up. She reached him and, without thinking, pressed her lips against his in a quick, deliberate kiss. The crowd fell silent. For a moment, everything stopped. The lights dimmed slightly as Lena pulled away, her heart racing not only from the unexpected kiss, but from the shock of her own actions. The eyes of the room were all on her now, as if she had just sparked a firestorm. People were whispering, some in shock, others in laughter, and still others in awe. Lena's face flushed with embarrassment, but also with a strange sense of victory. She had done it. She had avoided being claimed. But what she didn't realize was that the kiss had been far more significant than she could have ever imagined. The beggar stood motionless, looking at her with a calmness that made Lena feel even more uneasy. He didn't seem surprised or shocked by her kiss. Instead, he seemed pleased. He gave her a faint smile, though it was not one of mockery or amusement. It was a smile of something else, recognition perhaps, or a deeper understanding. Lena tried to quickly regain her composure. She glanced around, expecting the ceremony's organizers to step in. But they didn't. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, one of the alien lords, a tall and imposing figure with silver skin, cleared his throat. "What have we here?" he asked, his voice booming through the hall. "It seems that the lady has chosen a partner after all." Lena's heart skipped a beat. She was about to explain herself when the beggar stepped forward, his movements smooth and purposeful. He raised a hand to silence the crowd, his calm demeanor somehow commanding the attention of everyone in the room. "I am Kairos," he said simply, his voice rich and steady. "Prince of the Krilgar Dominion." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Lena blinked, her mind racing to make sense of what he had just said. She had kissed a prince. No, it couldn't be. A beggar, this ragged man, was a prince? How could that be possible? But the moment she saw the reactions of the people around her, she realized it was true. The nobles, who had been laughing and whispering only moments before, now stood frozen, their faces suddenly serious, even fearful. "Prince Kairos," Lena whispered, the realization dawning on her. Her body went cold with shock. This was no ordinary beggar. This was the heir to one of the most powerful alien empires in the galaxy, and she had just kissed him in front of everyone. The room seemed to spin. Lena stumbled back slightly, trying to gather her thoughts. She didn't know what to say, what to do. She had never been prepared for something like this. How could she have known? The ceremony was already chaotic enough, but this was something she couldn't even begin to understand. Kairos stepped closer, his piercing eyes never leaving hers. "You have chosen me," he said, his tone calm and measured. "And now you are bound to me by tradition." Lena opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. She could only stare at him in disbelief. This was not the way she had planned for the ceremony to go. Not at all. The hall was filled with silence as the shock of Kairos' revelation sank in. Lena stood frozen, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. The room around her had shifted from a celebration of tradition to something far more dangerous. She had kissed a prince. A prince. But how could this be? This man, this beggar, was the heir to a vast empire. How could she, in her haste to avoid being claimed, have ended up in such a tangled mess? The crowd around them buzzed with whispers. Some were in awe, others in fear. Lena could feel their eyes on her, some with curiosity, some with judgment. But one thing was clear, this was not just a minor slip-up. She had unwittingly entered a dangerous game that she hadn't even known existed. "Prince Kairos," she said, her voice shaky, "this is some kind of mistake." "I didn't." Kairos raised a hand, silencing her with a simple gesture. His eyes were calm, his expression unreadable. He didn't seem angry, nor did he seem particularly pleased. It was as if this was simply part of some grand design he had long ago accepted. "Calm yourself, Lady Lena," he said in a voice that was unexpectedly soothing. "You have not made a mistake. On the contrary, you have acted as expected." Lena blinked in confusion. Expected. She had no idea what he meant, but she could see now that his presence was something more than just a casual surprise. The way the nobles looked at him, the respect, the fear, the reverence, it was clear that this was no ordinary man. "Why? Why would you want someone like me?" she asked, her voice full of frustration and confusion. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to avoid the ceremony. I didn't know who you were." Kairos regarded her for a long moment, his dark eyes piercing through her. "I did not choose you as you might choose an object in a marketplace. I chose you because of your spirit, your defiance, your independence. The kiss was not an accident. It was a test. A test that you passed." Lena shook her head, still struggling to understand. "A test? I didn't know you were testing anyone." "You're saying this was all planned?" "Not entirely," Kairos replied. "But your choice was not entirely yours to make either. The Krilgar people have a tradition. The one who kisses the prince, unknowingly or not, becomes his partner. It is not an obligation, it is a bond. And now you are bound to me by that bond." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Lena felt her heart drop. Bound? She couldn't even fathom what that meant. She had only kissed him to escape the pressure of the ceremony. And now she was bound to him? This was far beyond her understanding. "This doesn't make sense," she said, her voice a whisper. "I didn't agree to this." "I didn't ask for it. You do not need to agree to it," Kairos said calmly. "It is the way of the Krilgr people. When one of our own seeks to form a partnership, it is often not done through words alone. It is done through action. Your kiss has sealed our fates, whether we desire it or not." Lena felt a lump form in her throat. She didn't want this. She didn't want any of it. But she could see now that there was no escape. She was trapped in a tradition she had never asked for. And worse, she was bound to a man she had just met, who was, as far as she could tell, as much of a stranger to her as anyone else in the room. The alien nobles were still watching them, their expressions unreadable. Lena could see that many of them were waiting for her reaction. Some were even smiling as if they found this situation amusing. She couldn't help but feel like a pawn in a game she didn't understand. "What happens now?" Lena asked, her voice small. "Now," Kairos said, stepping closer to her, "you begin to learn what it means to be bound to me. And I, in turn, must learn what it means to be bound to you." Lena frowned. "What does that even mean?" "It means that you will be trained," Kairos continued, "in the ways of the Krilgr people. It means that you will learn what it takes to be my partner, not just in this ceremony, but in what is to come. If we are to be truly bound, we must learn to understand one another." Lena stared at him, her heart still racing. This was all happening so fast. A part of her wanted to run away, to escape back to Earth, to find some semblance of normalcy again. But she knew that was impossible. The Krilgr Dominion was far too powerful, and she was already caught up in their web. Kairos seemed to sense her turmoil. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes softening. "I understand that you are frightened. This is not something you asked for, and I do not expect you to embrace it immediately. But the bond is there, and I will not force you into something you are not ready for." Lena swallowed hard. "So what now? You want me to become your partner? Just like that?" "Not just like that," Kairos replied with a faint smile. "You must earn your place by my side, just as I must earn yours. This will not be easy, but it is necessary. The Krilgr people will not accept weakness. They will not accept a partner who cannot stand beside their ruler with strength." Lena's mind was racing. She couldn't stand the idea of being molded into someone she wasn't, of being forced into a role she didn't want. But the thought of refusing him, of defying him, seemed equally terrifying. She could already sense the weight of the situation. She had kissed him. She was bound to him. There was no turning back now. "And if I refuse?" Lena asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Kairos didn't flinch. "Refusal is not an option," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The bond is unbreakable. To deny it is to deny your own existence in this world. The Krilgr people will not allow it." Lena felt a pang of fear at the finality in his words. She couldn't afford to defy the Krilgr Dominion, not if she wanted to survive in this galaxy. She didn't know if she could ever accept her place beside Kairos, but she knew that running away would only lead to disaster. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice quieter now, resigned. "I want you to be strong," Kairos replied. "I want you to fight, to challenge me if you must, but to do so with the strength of your mind and spirit. I want you to be my equal, not my servant." Lena nodded slowly, though doubts still lingered in her mind. She wasn't sure if she was ready for any of this, but she had no choice now but to play the part. She would have to learn how to survive in this strange world, and that meant learning what it meant to be a partner to a prince. Whether she liked it or not, Kara seemed to sense her acceptance. "Good," he said, offering a small but genuine smile. "We begin tomorrow." The room around them slowly started to come back to life as the nobles turned away and began talking amongst themselves again. But Lena remained focused on Kairos, her thoughts swirling in her head. There was so much she didn't understand, so much she hadn't planned for. But one thing was clear: her life would never be the same again. As Kairos turned to leave, Lena took a deep breath and followed him, knowing that the path ahead would be difficult, but also knowing that she had no choice but to walk it. She was bound to him now, and there was no going back. The days following the revelation of Kairos' true identity were nothing like Lena had expected. She had spent the past few days in a whirlwind of strange foreign customs and alien rituals. Everywhere she went, people seemed to watch her with expectant eyes. She was no longer just a young woman from Earth. She was the partner of Prince Kairos, the future ruler of the Krilger Dominion. At first, Lena had wanted to run. She wanted to escape back to the life she knew, the life where she was in control of her own future, where she wasn't trapped by customs and traditions that made no sense to her. But as the days passed, she began to realize something important. There was no running. No matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the bond between her and Kairos was real, and so she decided to make the best of it. If she couldn't escape her fate, then she would fight to shape it. She would not let herself become a pawn in a game she didn't understand. The Krilger people had high expectations, and it was clear that they saw her as nothing more than a test, a challenge. They wanted to know if she was strong enough to stand beside their future ruler. To be the true partner he needed, it was the middle of the week when Kairos summoned Lena to the royal training hall. The hall was vast, with walls made of shimmering dark stone that pulsed with a strange inner light. The air felt thick, as if it was charged with energy. Lena stepped inside, her heart racing with nerves. Kairos was already there, standing at the center of the room. He was calm as always, but there was something different about him today. A subtle, almost imperceptible tension in the way he held himself. He turned to face Lena as she entered. "Lena," he said, his voice as steady as ever, "today you will begin your training." Lena nodded, trying to ignore the sense of dread that crept up her spine. "Training for what?" she asked. "For what is to come," Kairos replied. "You are not here to simply stand by my side, Lena. You are here to lead beside me. The Krilger people are fierce. They will not accept weakness. You will face challenges, and you will face them with strength. The kind of strength that comes not from power, but from the mind." Lena frowned. "You think I'm weak?" "I think you are untested," Kairos said, his voice gentle but firm. "And in the Krilgar Dominion, that is the same thing." Lena felt a spark of anger at his words. She had been called many things in her life. Weak was never one of them. She had survived on Earth without anyone's help. She had fought for everything she had. But this was different. This was not Earth. This was a world where strength meant something else entirely. She straightened up. "So what do I have to do?" Kairos smiled, his expression warming just slightly. "Today, you will begin to understand the strength I speak of. We will start with strategy, Lena. Not everything is solved by fighting. Sometimes, the greatest battles are won by outsmarting your opponent." Lena nodded. She had always been good with strategy, even back on Earth. She was smart, quick-thinking, and could always find a way to get out of a sticky situation. But this was a whole new level of stakes. Kairos led her to a long, narrow table in the center of the room, where a map of the Krilger Dominion was spread out. It was covered in strange symbols and alien markings, but Lena recognized some of it: planets, star systems, battle zones. Kairos pointed to one part of the map. "This is the Eastern Expanse. It is one of the most contested regions in our empire. Many factions are vying for control. If we are to maintain our hold on the Dominion, we must control this region. But we cannot do it by brute force alone." Lena looked at the map carefully, her eyes scanning the symbols. "You want me to come up with a strategy to take control of it?" "Exactly," Kairos said, his eyes gleaming with a challenge. "But not just any strategy. I want you to think outside the box. How can we win this war without bloodshed? How can we make our enemies believe they have lost without ever firing a single shot?" Lena stared at the map for a moment. It was like a puzzle, one that she had to solve. She felt a strange sense of excitement building inside her. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to Kairos, but to herself. She could do this after several moments of silence. Lena spoke up. "We can create divisions among the enemy, spread rumors, make them distrust each other, have them fight amongst themselves, weakening their unity. While they're distracted, we can move in quietly and take control of the region without them even noticing." Kairos raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. Not bad. That's the kind of thinking I need, Lena smiled, feeling a rush of pride. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. She could see that Kairos wasn't just testing her. He was teaching her, too. And despite all the challenges, despite the confusion and the uncertainty, she could feel herself growing stronger. Not just physically, but mentally, over the next few days. Lena continued her training, learning not just about strategy, but about leadership. She learned about the politics of the Krilgr Dominion, about how their culture valued strength, but also wisdom. She learned how to negotiate with alien diplomats, how to deal with the tensions that existed between different factions within the Empire. And with every lesson, she felt more and more prepared for the role she had unwillingly stepped into. As the days passed, Lena and Kairos spent more time together, and something unexpected began to grow between them. It wasn't love, not yet. But there was a mutual respect. Kairos had a calm confidence that Lena had come to admire. He was not like the alien princes she had seen at the ceremony, all pride and arrogance. He was thoughtful, patient, and despite his power, never overbearing. Lena in turn showed him a side of humanity he had never known. Her resourcefulness, her passion, and her ability to think in ways that no Krilgr could. She reminded him that even though he was destined to rule an empire, there was still much for him to learn. The turning point came one evening, and they were once again working late into the night. The training hall was quiet. It's the only sound the faint hum of the lights above them. "You've done well," Kairos said as he looked over the final strategy Lena had put together. "This plan is brilliant. You've earned my trust, Lena." Lena looked up at him, surprised. "You mean it?" "I do," he said with a slight smile. "And I think it's time we show the Krilgr Dominion just what a human can do." Lena smiled back. She wasn't just a partner anymore. She was someone who had earned her place. And though the path ahead would be difficult, she knew she was ready for it. Together, she and Kairos would face the challenges of the future. And together, they would reshape the destiny of the Krilgr Dominion.